Turned it down, and that's turned down from where it was before. It was even louder.
That's right. Between that and coffee, that'll get.
I know, that's what it is.
That'll
I had to have my coffee, that was like worth an extra 90 seconds.
Absolutely, absolutely, completely understood.
Right. What the heck? Sorry, I'm supposed to call this to order, right?
Got 8:03.
All right.
Is it Paul, are you here?
I am.
Director Cameron, are you here?
Here.
All right.
Here we go. I'll just out again. What's next?
Public comment.
Public comment. Is there anyone online?
No.
Okay.
I can't show that. So no request to speak. All right.
All right. Then we're on to, sorry.
That coffee needs to kick in.
No, it's just my.
Computer needs to kick in.
Yeah.
Pour some coffee on your computer. See how that helps.
Give it a little caffeine.
It's, because I want to download the document. Okay. Lobby. Yeah. Administrative items, here we are. Consent agenda, minutes for approval from May 9th.
There's no discussion on the approval.
Second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Thank you.
And since there's no public, I'm gonna assume the public comment is part of that.
Yes, that's fair. Okay, item 5, discussion related to Olivos CSD grants, quote unquote, fair.
Right, so, this is a kind of an item that subcommittee and even the full board, I think, has had kind of wind of, well, we should have this grant fair, call in all the folks that we want to get money from, that we need some, we're getting help from. So I agendized it here so that, we can have a more formal conversation about it, so here you go.
Well, I think my view is it should be a broader discussion than just grants we're applying for, because I think we may need to, and I would also include potential appropriations and state funding. So I don't know that this is like the normal, what's out there, what do we apply for? This is getting decision makers at the table and figuring out how we're gonna pay, what their shares.
And maybe our term just needs to be changed, because I have the same opinion, but I know, we all know what we meant, either appropriation or grants, but we had talked about convening, Assemblyman Hart and Senator Lamone,
And the water.
and the water board, in a meeting, and, maybe we should try to target that, and agendizing that. I don't know that we'll get the assemblyman and the senator. But if we could get their chief of staff and then, the executive director of the water board, we may want to consider, offering to have that meeting in San Luis Obispo, because
Of the water board.
the water board is up there. I'm trying to remember now where Assemblyman Hart's district goes. He may not go up that far. I don't think he does. Yeah,
Stops in Santa Maria.
stops in Santa, maybe we have it in Santa Maria then.
Yeah, I think, to me, that's the first stop, is they need to own the strategy for the funding strategy with us. It needs to be co-owned. And then we have a discussion and understand their appetite for assisting. I mean, my deal is, in fact, I was thinking about this morning, like how much have we collected from residents today since the district was formed? How much have we already invested?
Well, let's just say 7 years and just $500,000 a year, just about 250 or 250. Okay, yeah. So
$1.5 million.
Yeah, so, I mean, we're already paying. Anyway, I think, I like the idea, I think after that, or maybe concurrently, we're doing the traditional grant route, but I think it's most important to have that leadership meeting to talk about how we're gonna come together and get this to success, because the only way we're gonna have a successful 218 is if there's some, whether it's county or state or both, level participation to defray the cost, the full rate. So let's start that conversation now.
So I think the first step would be that, and it might, not gonna be a one and done
No,
meeting, I'm sure, but we should probably kick it off with a meeting in Santa Maria. Is there any thoughts on the upside or downside of the Supervisor Hartman's office joining it, or should we run it to the state?
I think there's upside. Well, my initial thought is there's upside because of the county's response of like backstop responsibility.
Yeah.
And also what they've already invested in the project. You know, if you take the long view of this and this problem that's been festering for decades, like, okay, we did our part, we've got a proposed project, we've got a solution. Now we need to band together from a funding standpoint to bring this over to the finish line. And otherwise it's gonna end up back on your docket next year anyway.
And I think the points to bring to the state are that we've got something that the state looks favorably by the water board. I mean, they like the consolidation of the treatment, and so does our community. We heard that loud and clear, so we've got alignment on the project. Excuse me. So it sounds like a meeting in July or early August, depending on how we can schedule that, and maybe in Santa Maria would be the
Yeah, and my goal would be to have it scheduled before our next regular board meeting, so we can report out to the community that we're on.
that could be
Not just that we're on it.
before the July meeting.
Yeah, I mean, even if it's on the calendar,
Yeah, have it scheduled.
have it scheduled.
Okay. Yeah, because our July meeting is in like almost 2 weeks. So.
And then I'm thinking too, we'll need to do like a executive summary, if you will, that we can send in advance of that. It just is the Cliff Note refresher and frame the issue. What we want out of the discussion, which is their help in identifying ways to partner in funding in order to have a successful election. A successful election.
I agree.
Discussion.
Well, I think we could start. I mean, I think what we should do is get the assemblyman in the senator's office and the regional board, and then invite the third district. I don't want to have another, where all the rules have to line up.
Yes, I get it.
And so.
And who at the water, I mean, what level of leadership at the water board? That's mine, because is it Jane Gray? I mean, I go back to, this was on her radar when we started this thing. And she's the current chair.
Is she still chair?
Yeah, it's looking, so she's familiar with the project. I'm just thinking from a leadership and how, because I don't want to, or maybe it's her plus staff. I just raise the issue, but I want to make sure we're getting.
Yeah, I like that idea, and also it's a chance for us to report to her, this is how far we've come now, and so, yeah.
And I think getting our how far we've come, but also what the schedule looks like going forward.
Yeah.
You know, to looking at that 218 in third quarter of 2026, you know, we're burning daylight as far.
So I've got several questions for you. So you say Santa Maria, we can try and get county building, not county regional center. Just I realize I didn't dive into the details here, but
I think it was, this could go under subcommittee member comments, but at a recent event, it was actually the renaming of the post office after Mayor Lavanino. You saw that? And I knew the mayor just through the levy stuff, and so I was invited to that. Well, I ran into Bob Nelson, who was also their supervisor, and he sits on that bill.
Right.
And he just commented that if there's anything he can do to help us to let them know. So I just say that because through his office or Lavanino's office, we could get a conference room up in Santa Maria.
Or Joan's office, for that matter.
Yeah, she could help us. She could help us too. I think they're either Lavanino or Nelson's office actually holds the calendar for the conference room.
Got it.
So that's why I would approach them. I would approach them for that.
That makes sense.
And that should be no
And
problem.
that's a good thing to do through Bob anyway, you know, given his last go role.
Yeah.
He's been here a while.
So
county building,
if the government center, the Federated Government Center.
So I heard from Central Coast Regional Water Authority, we went to Jane Gray and Ryan Lodge. What might be why?
Jane?
Yeah.
I think it's.
I'll fix it. I'll reach out through Brian to get to Jane. I know you've got a good relationship with Hart. You want to reach out to him? You want me to do it? Or
You know what? Why don't you do it? And then I will text
I'll copy you on the
Ethan,
invite.
yeah, and the invite, and I'll text Ethan.
Yeah,
I know.
for sure. And then, but just put both of us on the CC.
Yeah.
I mean, not to, just so he.
Yeah.
If you wouldn't mind.
Sure.
I have a decent relationship with them, not like yours, but
Well,
we're both known quantities, I'll put it that way.
Yeah.
And
Same with Lily.
I don't know her from, I met her once. Is there somebody else in her office, do you know?
Oh, there's a new person, they were just in this, I'll find out.
Okay. All right. And then you talked about an executive summary. How's that going to get pulled together? I'm not sure what you're looking for there. So
I'm thinking,
maybe it could be as easy as, or where we are. The board has now voted on a project, and that we have what I think is good community consensus on that. And that now we're starting the design process, and we're looking forward to the 218. And the funding is gonna be the next big challenge, and we need your help. But, we could get more involved, or it could be as simple as something like that.
I think that it could be as simple as that. Maybe if there's, a link to the project description, a link to, I do think some summary that includes just the top line costs.
Mhm.
The solving portion of the pipeline in district, just roll up into and err on the side of the more expensive of the two as of now. So they know what we're looking at. And do we put an ask in there? We're looking for a minimum of half. Yeah,
I think maybe that would be a better dialogue. But
Yeah. I agree. So, all the cards out.
okay, so kind of a current status, links to project description costs. What else do you want to see in that?
I think some narrative just around, it's gonna take all of us working together to ensure a successful 218 election.
I think that's the blurb is to be successful, we're gonna need help.
Yeah, to have a successful vote, we're gonna need financial help, otherwise, at the full rate for 371 parcels, the likelihood of success is diminished. I don't know how you wanna. And I don't know if we would wanna go so far as to say, and then the problems remanded back to the county where it was a decade ago.
I think we just say that in the meeting.
Yeah, I agree.
I mean, I think they all know that, but we need to keep reminding them of that. So.
So what I'd like to ask then is, so that we don't break ground, can I work with one of you? I'll draft it and one of you can help me finalize it.
I'm happy to do that if that works for you.
Absolutely.
And then I could just attach it to,
Yep.
to, the invites. Okay.
Thank you.
All right. So I'll get a draft to you. I actually started, I realized that June is second quarter end, not gonna put out a second quarter report.
Got a lot to report.
What's that?
Got a lot.
Got a lot to report.
Well, we've got a lot to report, but at the same time, there's not a whole lot to report, you know what I mean? It doesn't have to be 400 pages, it's
No.
kind of like, here. It's
One
short.
really big paragraph.
Yeah, two, we have workshops, you
Yeah.
gotta talk about that, you gotta talk about groundwater, and you gotta talk about the project description, 2501, but yeah. Anyhow. All right, so, probably, next week or so, I'll get something to you, Lisa.
Okay.
Now, I'll text you once I've sent it, so that, it's waiting. Are you around through the 4th of July, or are you?
I'm around until the 6th, and then I'll just be somewhere else, but I will be able to get out and I'll have access and be working till light, hopefully, but working.
Can I suggest you, even though there's nobody here, just to be formal.
Yes, is there any public comment on item 5? Thank you. Item 6, discussion of future grants.
Just agendized it so that it was here, in case there was something that you guys had read or heard about.
Well, I saw, go ahead.
Maybe we'll know more after our meeting about what's available. The one thought is, Guy, have you been getting any notices? I don't even know, is the Irwin group still active?
Yeah.
Maybe just to check in with them and say, I don't know what the funding cycle is or what the focus is on. For a while there in the drought, focus was totally on emergency water supplies, and I don't know where they are now. But
The last I saw, it has shifted slightly. It seemed to be, I saw them, I think it was last week, even. They're really focused on those communities that don't have consistent source of potable drinking water.
yeah,
So there's a really poor communities that are very remote.
well, there was a community here in our county that was literally out of water, and they were trucking in water. I remember trying to connect them to Golden State, I think, or something like that.
So they're still really focused. That's where all their money is going, is to that groups.
And I saw that email that Doug had forwarded from Greg in his office. So I don't know
Yeah,
if
so
that's there, but also if I just want to be clear, if we're gonna engage them to help, that we have a specific scope for a deliberate decision that we are or are not, and have a scope if we are.
thank you for bringing that up. So I was talking to Doug about the fact this meeting was happening. So I'll ask Greg, just kind of, because that's what he does.
Right.
And I said, well, that's great. As a district engineer, you should be doing that for us.
Mhm.
I said, but we're not ready to engage him. And he said, no, I get it.
Yeah.
Okay.
And he said, apparently that's all Greg does. Look at grants.
Right. Because we had him do some work early on.
We did.
And that was somewhat
Yeah, somewhat. It's a big spectrum, isn't it?
Well, so, but that's why I think that's something, maybe going forward, or maybe that's something we also have on the agenda potentially, is there grant writing support that any of them have to offer? Like, I'm working on another project, like the county's parks grant writer, they made them available for us for the aquatics project. We've got entities that have grant writers that might be able to help
Is
us,
that the one in Orchid,
which,
the aquatic
no,
center?
here,
Oh, here.
two
I remember
goals.
there was that one.
No, that's my, check out the SPY this one.
Oh, okay.
No, that's another, no, but my point is, like, both, just on that project, the county, both cities and the county would make their grant writers available. Because it's a project that's, benefiting those jurisdictions, so I think that's a question, either for the water board and for the county.
Yeah.
And at a minimum, they're collaborating, if we end up hiring someone, at a minimum, they're collaborating with those folks, but at best, we get grant writing support from one of those. I'm just trying to get the Lamone name from yesterday.
So, just to close out the Doug Pike email that you guys saw, I told them, thanks, no action required at this point, that I'd make sure that, that's why I said, thank you for reminding me that you saw that. I told them I'd raise it today and see if there was any action, and unless you hear something more from me, consider it a non-action at this point. And if Greg happens to see something and send me an email because he saw something, that would be great. That's it.
Sounds good, thank you. Just gonna send this real quick. He was sitting, like he and Ethan sitting together. Yeah, so I think to your point, if MNS just organically comes across anything, I think that's how to be part of the discussion right now. Any public comment on discussion of future grants? No? Anything else on that? Okay. Moving on to 7, discussion on the development of a grant plan.
This is kind of just like prior, and it's there so we can have some discussion based on something you want to do here. Not.
The only thing I'll say is I know that Director Kennedy had previously put some, like a spreadsheet or worksheet together. And I think he talked, did you reshare that with us?
I did a while back, but I can send it again. It's pretty outdated now, to be honest. I mean, the grants that were available when she originally put it together, those are all gone.
Yeah.
And then she updated it she started updated about a year ago, and even those grants are pretty much gone now.
Right. Fair enough. I just wonder though, just as a starting place, if there's anything. If you send it to me, I'll find it.
I can resend it.
But I just think this will all fall out of that meeting. At least the framework's gonna fall out of that meeting, and then who owns what. Any public comment on the grant plan?
Just to be round and safe, I'm gonna attach it to the agenda, or to the minutes of this meeting.
The
spreadsheet,
that's
yeah.
great. Okay, perfect.
But I'll send it to you guys. That way it's not something you have as subcommittee members that probably don't know.
Got it. Fair. That's good. That was my intention. Okay. Then moving on to 8, subcommittee member comments.
I had just had one, I was gonna cover that one USDA webinar, which either I had the date wrong, but it's moved, it's in, I've got it on my calendar, it's in July, I thought it was in May. And so I'm signed up for that, but then it took me, I was emailing, a representative in Santa Maria, and I ended up just meeting with him and just going over, and we had met with them, before, Mr. Savage, I think, was in on that, I don't know who the other director was at the time, years ago. USDA. And so I just want to touch base back with them, and they kind of made it clear that they're really not a grant, they're a loan, but their advantage is for whatever part we have to finance. You know, going out and getting a bond for our district, you know, would be impossible because we have no history, no collateral. Yeah, and so the USDA, the state revolving fund is the other, option for the balance. So nothing other to report than I just met with them to say, hey, we're still out here working, and they just said, we're here, and it sounded like their program would be a good fit for us, but only for the financing and not for any grants. So
Did they happen to mention what the current rates are?
4.5.
4.5. There you go. I've been saying 5, so I'm glad to hear it's less than that.
I'm wondering if we can. I'm just thinking about where we collect and keep that information so that we're not, maybe that just goes back into the spreadsheet, yeah. There's there's grants, there's appropriations, there's financing.
I also asked them if at some point, if we were to request them to come down and give us an overview of their program and whatnot to either the board or the subcommittee, and they seem receptive to doing that. So at the appropriate time, we could do that. That was my only comment.
Yeah, I guess my only, I don't have anything to report, but I guess what I'm thinking about this is, if there are any other opportunities coming up. I haven't seen anything come across any funding briefings.
No, got to keep in mind that the budget cycles that are all
Right.
looking toward, right? They're starting their new year.
Right.
And so now it's about appropriating funds that they budgeted for, so they're.
Right.
Yeah, so unless we saw, and I don't recall seeing anything in the budgets that looks like there. But we can always try and get planning and development funds, or not planning and development, but planning and development funds for some of the work we're doing. Those funds are often available to different groups.
Right. So how would we go about, what's the different groups?
Now we've got some real funds or some projects. Again, this is one of the ones that through the water board, for instance, they could probably give us some suggestions to say, hey, we might go get the funds for these guys. Some of the Aspen County might be doing the same sort of
So
approach.
we'd add that to our. Okay. Anything else for the good of the order?
Adjournment at 8:31.
I will second. All those in favor? Aye. All right, thank you. Meeting is adjourned.